What is up, people of the Snyderverse? Welcome to my part 2 spoiler review for Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, in these videos, go check out part 1, by the way, if you haven't seen it. It's quite a long one. It's around 40 minutes long. I expect this video to be around a similar length. If you didn't know already, this is kind of more of a companion piece to the movie. It's designed to be a long podcasty kind of format of me bumbling my thoughts at the screen. Even though this is titled Chapters 4 to 6, last video I paused in between Chapter 3, so we're going to resume off there, but this is mainly about Chapters 4 to 6. So I really want to know what you think about the overall climactic part of the movie. This is where stuff really goes down. Darkseid, we're talking anti-life equation found by Steppenwolf. We're talking loads of things. So, right at the end of the last part of my review, I got to the point of where Steppenwolf was kind of torturing the Atlanteans, extracting the information about the mother box, and we pick up more or less with the Bruce and Diana scene. Do you remember Zack Snyder saying the studio, Warner Brothers, wanted him to inject more comedy into the movie? Now, we had jokes like that with Ezra Miller's Barry Allen. Of course we did, right? Now, the jokes that he did include aren't Whedon jokes. Let me get that across to you guys. I'm not saying they are. And transparently, I did enjoy the humor in this movie because all of it was Zack Snyder selected. But there was this moment with Diana and Bruce where they went to touch the mouse at the same time, and it was kind of this awkward moment where they were both like, sorry, it's okay, don't worry about it, it happens. And it's just funny seeing Batman do that with Wonder Woman. Just thought I'd mention this because I remember seeing that and thinking, oh, that's interesting that they decided, well, Zack decided to put that in there, but I wanted to also mention how he was told to kind of put that in there, and it just makes me think what jokes were honestly his idea and what jokes were his idea, but also based off the fact that he knew he had to kind of put a few kind of funny moments in there. But I have to say, they were organic. They weren't forced, like Ezra falling on top of Gal Gadot's stand-in. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't that level. It was as organic as Zack could make it. Now, we're still in the recruitment process, so up next was a lot of Cyborg stuff. We had Cyborg looking at kids playing football, which brings us to another Snyder Cut moment, which, this is going to be a sentiment that I just echo throughout a lot in these two parts spoiler review. Why did you cut this out? We saw the relationship between the supportive mother for her son while Silas was at work. Doesn't mean that Silas doesn't care about his son, but evidently work always takes priority, and you really saw that in these moments with Ray Fisher. I have to say, Ray Fisher absolutely killed it, not only in this movie, but obviously the rest of Chapter 3 was quite Cyborg-centric, and I felt like this was a very good telling of his origin story brought to fruition in this adaptation, because obviously it ended with the car crash, but right before then, there was that line from his mother saying, I can't wait to see what you can do tomorrow, with Victor tearing up in that moment, right before she was taken from him. Very bittersweet moment. I really felt it. I don't want to repeat myself, but I just don't get why you would take that out the Whedon cut. Like, Whedon, I don't understand. Even if you wanted to take some of it out, why wouldn't you have included parts of it? The following parts were really awesome as well, where we had that moment, where we had that commentary saying you still have a life ahead of you, your mother would have wanted you to live that life, your physical strength is just the tip of the iceberg, the tip of the tip. Then we see Cyborg on the rooftop. He has his own take-off flight moment like Clark does. Starts hovering, testing out his flight. More commentary saying, in the world of ones and zeros, you are the absolute master. No firewall can stop you. No encryption can defy you. We're all at your mercy, Vic. All technology will bend to your will. This was just an epic kind of montage of just Cyborg origin moments. This moment all ended off with him actually taking flight and smiling before his visor came on. Cyborg kind of, it was such a beautiful moment because whilst he viewed himself as broken with this cybernetic body, it was almost like for the first time here, almost is relishing in this cybernetic state. I also loved seeing him like giving and transferring money to that woman's account and just seeing them absolutely ecstatic with all of this money. I think they had like $100,000 or something like that. And now we're taken to Barry visiting Henry Allen. This scene was quite different in the Whedon cut. In a sense, they obviously had him draw stuff on that other guy's face. All of that was removed. So that's an example of the Whedon stuff. But to be fair to that scene, that was kind of in character for Ezra Miller's Barry Allen, or should I say quirky Allen. Putting all that aside, the Henry Allen stuff, I'm only going to talk about temporarily because I feel like I've spoken about that a billion times before. Now, the only thing I really have to say about this scene, and it pains me to say it because it's really bittersweet, is that Billy Crudup is just absolutely fantastic as Henry Allen. His scenes were emotional. You also have him wanting his son to stop living his life to kind of get his father out for getting into the forensic science. Obviously, this is very Barry Allen accurate. And very recently as well, we have now learned that Ron Livingston is replacing Billy Crudup as Henry Allen in the Flashpoint movie. Now I assume, obviously, he's going to have a very similar approach, but I just hope he's as endearing, and the relationship and the chemistry between Ron and Ezra is just as sentimental as what I felt with Billy and Ezra in these scenes. Just when he says the lines of, "You're a brilliant man, absolute best of the best, and I can't sit here and watch you run in place of Central City for some old dude who's not going anywhere. I want you to make your own future. You're living in the past. Make your own future." And obviously as well, the Flash echoed these words. It's such a, obviously Henry Allen is such a crucial point of reference to Barry Allen as a character, which is why I love how Zack included that with the Speed Force scene later. Which is, you know, at the end of the day, boiling it down to the bottom line here, gutted to see Billy Crudup go, but hoping that the new Ron Livingston casting for the Flashpoint movie carries on the flow that they both established in the Snyder Cut scenes. Then we get some familiar scenes. Barry goes up to his kind of squatting location where he's got a sick setup. It looks amazing. Bruce Wayne is there, throws the Batarang, very similar stuff here. I also appreciated that billboard in the background, obviously raising awareness for the mental health. It's a nice little kind of, I wouldn't even say an Easter egg, but, you know, it was deliberately put in there. Another comedy scene that I did appreciate as well, because this just works. It's kind of stuff that you would want to see in a film like this. You have enough time to add scenes like this in. So I want to know what Diana is like around Alfred when Bruce is out recruiting Barry Allen. So we had Diana making tea, but Alfred being Alfred, this was actually perfect, capturing essence of the character of Alfred, but also I have to big up Jeremy Irons. I love Jeremy Irons anyway, but his Alfred is phenomenal. He's not my favorite Alfred, but he's definitely up there, right up there. It's very hard to choose between perfect Alfreds, but here he insists on making the tea, so he was like, if you put in the water first so we don't scald the tea, he just can't help himself. And Diana is like, please stop hovering over me, please, but she's also amused by it at the same time. I also like how we had like further explanation, because I remember seeing the trailers, I was like, is Batman's armor really gonna deflect parademon alien tech weapon blasts? It's almost a bit, I know it's comic book logic, you could just argue it about anything, but they decided to put the explanation in this moment with Alfred fitting Bruce's gauntlet with special cells that capture and then dissipates that energy, which also made a return when Clark was heat visioning the crap out of Batman's armor. Love seeing that scene between Diana and Vic again. She's so patient with him, so compassionate. I mean, that's the kind of love and kind of accepting part of Wonder Woman that is still present in Snyder's version. I do prefer Snyder's version overall, as I said in my part 1 review, prefer the more warrior approach, but she also encapsulates all the other facets of Wonder Woman that I think Patty Jenkins just capitalizes the crap out of. So whereas she dangles people here to there with a lasso, never using the sword and shield, that's still present in this Wonder Woman, but she also equips the sword and shield at the same time. It was good seeing Commissioner Gordon again as J.K. Simmons. I would have wanted to see a few more scenes from him, but I don't think we technically did. But either way, it's some familiar things with saying how half of Gotham are saying that they saw flying monsters, and now people are thinking that Sketch is Batman. It does look like Batman, or what you describe Batman to be, but as Jim said himself, come on, you think he fights crime in Gotham for 20 years, and then he goes to Metropolis and kidnaps 8 people? No. But this is where we talk about Mirror and the Mother Box. Now, in this version, Amber Heard is using a British accent. Say what you will about Amber Heard, I don't want to go too deep into this, but what I will say, in a critical sense, it's interesting. I do prefer the British accent. Now, I do realize that kind of sounds funny coming from somebody who's British, but I don't know, there's just something a bit more unique about it. So I kind of agree with Zack Snyder's vision there for the Mirror character, whereas obviously she has that accent's non-existent in what we've seen before and in Aquaman, the movie. Steppenwolf arrives. Can he breathe underwater or something? Like, maybe this is alien biology, I don't know, but I just noticed he was like, "Rrr." This is where Mary uses her powers to try and stop Steppenwolf from reaching the box, and Arthur comes in last second, protecting Mirror from Steppenwolf's axe. Ultimately, though, obviously, he gets away with the Mother Box, and this takes us to the scene of where, yet again, it's kind of more Aquaman set up before his solo movie, speaking about Queen Alana and how she took Mera in, and how dare you speak of your mother that way, Arthur being the prodigal son who's kind of half returned at this point. But I also like, to be honest, the line of how Mera said it is his responsibility, because it would have been hers, to follow that monster to the surface and stop him. And that that kind of, you know, set in motion Arthur coming in at the next chapter, I believe, to save the day. And at the end of this chapter, the big bubble shield around the fortress is established, and now it's time to find the third. So this begins chapter 4, Change Machine. Loved seeing Batman on top of the gargoyle again. This brings us to that rooftop scene with Commissioner Gordon, and this brings us to that parademon lair, Steppenwolf interrogating people for the Mother Box whole scene that was present in the theatrical cut. This is quite different, much prefer it. I believe even in the theatrical cut, doesn't he even kill one or two of the scientists? I can't remember. I don't think he does in this one. I loved Steppenwolf taunting Diana in this scene, and one thing I would say is, at least to me, the CGI looks so clean. I loved Diana combating Steppenwolf. It felt very different. It felt longer, more fluid. The scenes felt reorganized to kind of depict it in a slightly different way. I know I've mentioned this in my last review. I do like the Wonder Woman music. I just felt like it should have been used a bit more sparingly, this new theme, because I do like it when Wonder Woman comes in and it's got those like low hums of the or like the very low pitched strings or the guitar kind of announcing her arrival. I felt like every time she arrived on the scene, it was like, ah! It was epic, but there's something not quite right about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm a fan of it, but also something is slightly off. I don't know. What do you guys think now? I would love to know your thoughts. I know some people are really taking the piss out of that to the extreme end, and I completely disagree with that. It definitely does work, but I don't know if it works as well as just using variations of the Wonder Woman theme that we know and love. This was the first taste of Wonder Woman, Diana, Barry, Cyborg doing their thing, saving Silas Stone. It was great, and, you know, the more, as I keep saying, I see Steppenwolf's spiky armor, the less eccentric I think it is, and the more badass it just looks. Also, loved seeing the Flash save all those people from the rubble, and you kind of see the speed mirage of him being left behind. Speed mirage being that he's traveling so fast, there's, to your eye, you see a bit of him there still before it disappears. It's just wicked. That's very Flash. This is what I mean, guys. As much as I think it's a miscast and he's quirky Allen or whatever, I still love at moments that we got with Ezra Miller's Barry Allen in this, the speedster aspects that Zack Snyder gave to us. But this brings us to Steppenwolf teleporting back to the fortress in front of the metal pillar where the two mother boxes are. This is when the mother boxes decide to speak to him. Now, this is a very interesting moment because I'm going to revisit a point again. Some of you replied to what I said about this in the previous video, so I'm going to address those comments right here. So Steppenwolf says to the mother boxes, "What is it? Show me." And then he's kind of imbued with this energy which teleports him and makes him appear at the battlefield, I believe, to which the ancient war happened on. Because if you remember, Darkseid slammed the ground, the anti-life equation showed itself, but he could never really figure out what the anti-life equation was and harness it because he was kicked out of Earth, basically. He was sent running with his tail in between his legs. Now, this is the moment where the mother boxes say, "Yo, bro, like, guess what? This is the planet." Like, and teleports him there. He slams down the axe, and he is absolutely ecstatic because obviously Steppenwolf knows, oh my god, Darkseid is going to love me. He's found the planet where the anti-life equation is on, the same anti-life equation we saw in those flashbacks. And this is where he goes to Darkseid again, and he says, "I bring news. Before mighty Darkseid came to the throne, he searched the universe for the ultimate weapon, the anti-life equation, the key to controlling all life and all will throughout the multiverse." This is where he goes on to explain that he found it on the primitive planet, and then he gets interrupted by Darkseid saying the story of the Defiance is well known, and then he reveals, "But I found the primitive planet, the world that fought back." This is where Darkseid is like, oh my god, like, it gets Darkseid, and I'll talk about that in a second, but like, I'm sorry, it still kind of confuses me a bit, or not, it doesn't confuse me, it's just kind of hard to believe. When Darkseid obviously got kicked off the world by the combined forces of Earth's peoples, I still feel like in the ships, if you have a ship that is good enough, multiple ships in an armada, to do interstellar travel, this, that, and the other, you would have a quadrant on that ship, kind of pinpointing, like on a video game, you put a little pinpoint down where Earth is, and you'd realize, like, even though Darkseid got taken back, even though one of the Armada's ships got blown up, because there were some people saying in the comments, yeah, but maybe that was the ship that had the location of Earth saved, just in case they wanted to come back to it again. I'm sorry, that's not really much of a good enough reason for me. I'm not hating on this at all, by the way, it's just, I find it like a little bit flawed or hard to believe that Darkseid, yes, Yes, he got knocked out. Yes, he got sent back to Apocalypse. Yes, he got sent away with his tail in between his legs, very embarrassingly. But he found the anti-life equation. He knew he found it. His glory was robbed from him, as he said. And it's completely fair enough that he didn't return back there. Whatever. Return back whenever you want. It's just the fact that he lost the world. What? I don't know, I just find that a bit too hard to believe. Like, those ships that are capable of all of this travel, he traveled a long way from Apocalypse to get to Earth. They would have saved that location in their GPS. But apparently they lost it, and that's what we have to go with. They lost the world, and now Steppenwolf, after conquering many worlds, still trying to re-find the world that Darkseid lost them previously, happened to stumble across it after having already conquered 50,000, because he's, as Darkseid said, he's got 50,000 left to go in order to repay his debt for his betrayal, which, you know, wasn't really a betrayal, but whatever. Justice for Steppenwolf, am I right? Last word on that aspect, I find it too much of a far stretch that they just lost it. Say what you will, but if you're just going to tell me that they were just running away, obviously, and naturally so because they were bested, and they just didn't get the location of the planet, that's just not a great excuse for me. They would know that planet is the planet that defeated them. They would have stored the location, and yeah, maybe to come back one day. It makes no sense to not know where that planet is. But anyway, as a result of this, Darkseid appears. Steppenwolf is absolutely in awe of this. He relinquishes his armor, like half of it, just out of respect for Darkseid. And he says, "Can it be true that you have found it?" And he says, "I have, Great One. The lost world is Earth. Anti-life is here." And Darkseid said, "If it is redemption you seek, find the third box, synchronize the unity, and when the world is scorched, I will come for my great prize." And then Steppenwolf was like, you will come to Earth? This is the very scene that everyone is kind of memeing about with cute Steppenwolf. Like, there is no denying it. When you have that zoom in on his face and his frown is a little bit upside down, he's got those endearing eyes, the big eyes. I do feel sorry for him. And I don't need to reiterate again how it technically is an injustice to Steppenwolf with the events of the film, because in the comic books, he didn't technically betray, or like what he did do was out of the best interests for the throne of Apocalypse and protecting Darkseid. So yeah, like, I feel bad for Steppenwolf. No matter what way you look at it, I understand he's coming to conquer Earth and this, that, and the other. But in terms of his own area, his own alien drama, justice for Steppenwolf. He didn't do anything wrong. But now that things are really ramping up, I liked the explanation from Cyborg about the history of the mother boxes. He says that the certain group, which I don't want to say because of demonetization, in World War II, found the box at the end of the Second World War, buried under an Italian monastery. Aliens intercepted it on its way to that said Adolf kind of person. They brought it back to the States in 44, unknown object 61982. It collected dust for 70 years till the Department of Defense began to study the Superman ship. And that researcher was his father, and then lo and behold, the birth of Cyborg happened. And I also really like the ability of the mother boxes, like the ability they have, and this goes to what happened with Cyborg, it looks like it's reversing time of the tape recorder that he previously destroyed from his father, but they're change machines. And as he said, the boxes don't think in terms of healing or killing, alive or dead. They rearrange matter at the will of their masters, so regenerate, reinstate. This next bit was really and truly a special moment for me, and I feel really bad for all the people. I don't get why, like, this moment was basically spoiled in the trailer. If you saw Martha Kent in the official trailer number 2 for Zack Snyder's Justice League, you see that she has glowing eyes. That ruined it for a lot of people because, like, there's no other reason why she would have those red eyes unless she was Martian Manhunter. So I want to say, when I was watching my early screeners copy, that trailer wasn't even out. And that moment where Martha comes in, they have a little bit of a talk, a hug, she talks about losing the farm. My jaw dropped. It really did when it was revealed to be Martian Manhunter. Such a good surprise. And I said that in my non-spoiler review at the time, that it's going to catch so many of you off guard. But alas, it didn't for so many people because they knew the moment it was coming in. Why would you reveal that? Why? Why did the marketing people put that in the trailer? I'm sorry, it just pains me because for me, I was like, no, like, I knew he was coming at some point, but to kind of present Martha Kent as the Martian Manhunter, do the double twist, that was excellent. Absolutely fantastic. And let me know, was that spoiled for you? Or did you react like me and have the natural experience that you were supposed to have? Like, you didn't know that Martha in that moment would be the Martian Manhunter. Also, I just like how Martian Manhunter decides to put, it's like what Zack Snyder says. He at this point in time, before the very ending scene, has wanted Earth to figure out its own shit for itself. He's on Earth, he kind of has a stake in this world, and he's doing his bit in his military position, but he's not going to come out and be Superman because he wants humanity to find its own way until the end of the movie where he's like, okay, I'm actually going to step in now because, yeah, like, fair enough, I wanted humanity to do its own thing beforehand. That's important. So that was another example of him trying to prod Lois Lane in the right direction. But when Darkseid's coming, that's when he has to take off the cloak, take off the facade of his human form, and yeah, he's got to fight as a member of the Justice League, technically speaking, against Darkseid. So yeah, kind of a little weird wrap-up of the end scene there. But overall, Martian Manhunter speaking, absolutely epic moment, an epic reveal, and I'm sorry if you didn't experience that as an absolute surprise, because that sucks. Right, now, just before Chapter 5, we got that moment where, as I said earlier, I have another kind of issue with. This can be technically addressed, though, and I'll propose that in a second. So, basically, the Justice League came to the realization of when they were considering to revive Superman, that the boxes were in fear of Superman, the Kryptonian, and that is why they have only just awakened as of when Superman died. Ultimately, Bruce pieces together that Victor's father activated the mother box a year ago, and it didn't reach out to Steppenwolf. None of the boxes did. Not until Superman died. He goes on to say it's like they were afraid of him. They were afraid of him. Now, that makes sense in the immediate face value aspect of it, right? To the general moviegoer. It's like, okay, you know what, yeah. Like, they never activated before because Superman was here. But when he died, they were like, Darkseid, Steppenwolf, come get me. But it's like, yeah, you're kind of forgetting that before the events of Man of Steel, or before Clark was even sent to Earth, you had 5,000 years in between that battle and obviously present day. Why didn't the mother boxes activate before this? So they're pinning the very reason why the mother boxes didn't activate was because they were afraid of Superman. And as soon as he died, they activated. The thing is, like, fair enough. 5,000 years ago, they didn't activate because they had only just been defeated. Darkseid wasn't exactly... But what about 2,000 years after that? 2,500 years? 2,868 years? The Atlanteans went into the waters, the peoples of Earth, like, you know, as Diana says, they said the Age of Heroes would never come again. Like, they probably wouldn't come together again because, you know, there's a lot of bad blood between certain... So my point is, for all intents and purposes, there was no Kryptonian around that time, and the movie presents in present day that the mother boxes would only activate when they realize there's no Kryptonian around. Well, as far as we are aware, in those 5,000 years, and I want to stress this just in case you're going to try and counter this in a comment, and I really welcome you to do so, I'm not even talking right after Darkseid leaves. Put 2,000, 3,000 years after that, where there's 2,000 years still left until present day. Why wouldn't the mother boxes activate then? The only explanation I can give is some theories that are floating out there. The Kryptonian pod that was open in Superman's ship, if that's Kara or some other Kryptonian, maybe they left that ship a few thousand years ago. So there was a Kryptonian still on Earth, maybe died or went away or something like that before present day, but the mother boxes didn't reach out to Steppenwolf or Darkseid in that 5,000 year gap after Darkseid was defeated, because actually, believe it or not, there was another Kryptonian. That's the only answer I can give, but the movie doesn't present that. So with what the movie presents, it's kind of a little bit flawed with yeah, but Superman wasn't around before, like, 30-something years ago, so why didn't they reach out then? So do you know what I mean? So I wanted to play devil's advocate for both sides there. Let me know what you think, but let's move on to Chapter 5. So Chapter 5, All the King's Horses. This chapter was about reviving Superman, and we got some very interesting peeks into the nightmare timeline, one possible outcome of what could happen. So this started with them exhuming Clark from his grave. Loved the extra scenes with Bruce and Alfred. Like, I don't get why they cut this out as well, where it says, Master Wayne, you've done it. You've put the team together to fight this war. You've fulfilled your promise. And we get those lines from the trailer where he says, your guilt have overcome your reason. And the whole, if you can't bring down the charging bull, then don't wave the red cape. But then Bruce, I love this moment because, as I've heard from multiple people now, and I do agree with this, it's very arguably refreshing seeing a Batman with faith. Now, I'm on both sides of this, but, you know, considering where Batman's at 20 years later, this is a perfect time for him to act the way he is. Because he interrupts Alfred by saying, you do when it's this red cape. This red cape charges back. That was epic. But the performances and delivery from both Ben Affleck and Jeremy Irons in this scene was arguably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Ben Affleck and Jeremy Irons, Alfred and Bruce Wayne scenes that we've got in the Snyderverse. Moving onwards and upwards, they enter Star Labs. The false alarm goes off. We're kind of glossing over those details a little bit. Batman arrives in grapple hook style, says, "Victor, clear this place out." Batman, the leader of the Justice League. Like, this was really epic, just seeing them come through the door like these heavy-duty gods among men, even though Batman's a man, like, but you know what I mean, and so is Barry. But do you know what I mean? The way Snyder does his visuals and grounds this universe and world, you really do feel like these are real people in costumes, but not only costumes, heavy-duty, realistic Amazon armor. It's just epic. When they're walking to revive Superman in those waters, there's just something about that scene where everything was so heavy duty and each character had such a presence about them, and Silas was just looking at them like, oh. I also appreciate that they included that unspoken understanding between Silas and his son. Like, obviously Vic isn't like mega endorsing his dad, but he gives that nod, basically saying thank you. You may not exactly understand what we're doing right now, but you're gonna have to trust me that we're doing whatever we're doing here at Star Labs for a purpose, and Silas is on board with that. I like how the suits and pods start opening as the ship knows that Superman is there. It also cuts to Lois in this moment because it sets up her happening to go for coffee on the, like, it is quite convenient. I suppose it's, you know, Martian Manhunter pushing her in the right direction, but she gave up going to that place, getting coffee every day, but happens to go and get coffee on the day that Superman happens to get revived on. It's all like, you know, destiny, I suppose, but it is also like, what if she decided to only go out the next day? She wouldn't have been there to stop Superman lasering the crap out of Batman. But this moment was super interesting as well, because you see, once again, the Man of Steel themes, you know, what are you going to do when you're not saving the world? That's actually my favorite Superman theme ever. It's not the main one, but it's also the one with the dun 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 dun. That always kills me. She grabs her reporter badge. You know, she's been given that extra push by Martian Manhunter, so she's ready to go out again. But notice in that drawer, and I know you've already probably noticed this, there's a pregnancy test. Now, this doesn't mean she's necessarily pregnant, but it could just mean also that they've been trying to get pregnant when Superman was alive, like they were preparing to start that next chapter of their lives together. It's super interesting. The box didn't look opened, so you don't know. You could play it either way. You could argue not only is she missing Clark and she feels very depressed because she's grieving for him, she's also having to combat in all those scenes, if you look at it in a different context, that she's pregnant with an alien baby. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's, and she's got to raise him all alone in theory. But put that to the side. They could have just been trying for a baby, and that's why there's a pregnancy test. So I'd love to know your thoughts on that down in the comments, but it was definitely setting up a future Superboy in a theoretical future Snyderverse. But the reason why I also like to lean into the fact that she was pregnant is because it really adds into the nightmare, devastated Superman holding Lois Lane, absolute anguish that Clark is in that Darkseid scene even more. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. So moving onwards, Superman is dipped in the waters by Aquaman. The Superman theme continues very strong. This is where Barry creates the charge. The ship is simultaneously begging Victor to not wake the box because it knows what could happen. Everyone is panicking about this, mainly Aquaman saying this sounds like a bad idea, we should abort. Batman's is like, fuck's sake, just do it. And then boom, we are given a vision. In this vision, we see the world turning to dust. We get Wonder Woman's funeral, as she was likely probably going to go to the underworld to return as potentially the new god of war, but that's a whole other thing. We see the Armada in the skies, Darkseid killing people in Atlantis, Arthur with the Omega Beam. It's all brilliant. And we had Superman with Lois's skeleton in his arms, which is when Darkseid puts a hand on his shoulder and his face resolves after anguish, becoming like recollected in conviction to have potential vengeance and revenge. Like, because either way, I've gone over this in my Epilogue dedicated video. Go check that out if you haven't already. There's a bunch of theories as to how this could have gone down. I believe originally Snyder was going to have Darkseid kill Lois, who could argue that her skeleton juiced up Raiders of the Lost Ark body was a result of Omega Beams, but now we know that's not the case. So loads of people have lent their theories to maybe Superman is so upset in this moment because I don't know why, but maybe he visioned her. Now that sounds ridiculous, but he could have been, for some reason or another, under some other illusion that wasn't Lois. The interesting thing is he blames Batman in the future. She's in the Batcave in this moment. Various theories say that Bruce put Lois Lane in the Batcave. Maybe he was baiting Darkseid there, so used her as bait. It didn't work out. That was enough to make Superman angry. But I also do like the other theory of what if he killed his own wife. But I know that sounds stupid. I don't have a reason for why. Maybe there was some weird hallucinating kind of thing going on. I don't know. But we still technically don't know how she died, because if it wasn't Darkseid, then how is she vaporized? The only other reason I can think of is heat vision. But the other heart-wrenching thing about this, and why he turns all of his blame to Bruce, whether he killed her or not, he will still blame Bruce for her being there. If she was pregnant, imagine the thought of him knowing that his wife and unborn baby is dead. And imagine the weight on that if he also did it himself. I don't know how, but like, it's just a theory. It's like, wow, what if that actually happened? And that's why Darkseid is like, yeah, man, they're there. Yeah, let's destroy this world. It then cuts to Dark Superman holding Batman's cowl in a nightmare future. We see a lantern in the rubble as well, so it looks like the Guardians of the Sky came down to help in the present day battle. I believe Victor even says no in this moment as a reaction, like no, and then Barry hears it as go. So he goes and then starts the electrical charge that will revive Superman. As we know though, Superman kind of eats his way out of there. Lois is like, oh my god, he's back. The battle ensues. Kal-El, no, all the kind of typical stuff. I have to point out though, there were plenty of soldiers right next to the trucks where Superman I know he wasn't himself, but he heat visions them and they explode. And as I'm saying, like, they were as close to their army trucks as I am to this camera right now. They definitely died, or at least a couple of them died. So Superman kind of murdered, but not on purpose. But one of my favorite moments from this was when Batman approaches Superman and vice versa, really. His wrist guards start absorbing the energy, and if it wasn't for Lois being there, as I said, happens to go out on the day she hadn't been going out on previously because she had just been in home, like wallowing in her own, grieving for Superman, then Batman would have been dust. I love it though when Amy Adams approaches Clark and he just loses himself in hugging her and just smelling her hair, everything. Like the senses of smell must unlock so many memories all at once for him. He comes to a lot more, and then they fly to the Kent farm, which just led to a whole other bunch of heartwarming scenes that came a little bit later on. But obviously in this moment, Steppenwolf acquired the mother box because, and it came with like Silas Stone sacrificing himself through supercharging the mother box with the laser so that they could then track it. But I still argue it was unnecessary for him to die. It was very cool, like, don't get me wrong, but did he have to be in there? I don't know, like, he could have just ran out, and who knows what would have happened. Wonder Woman and Flash happened to arrive a little bit late. Could argue that the mother box would be one of their biggest priorities. I know Superman is there, but I don't know. That scene was very sad. I much prefer it this way regardless than the theatrical cut where Silas survived and was there at the end. Now, part 6, something darker. Picks up on the Kent farm, I believe. Yet again, those heartwarming scenes. Superman theme. Not going to repeat myself too much there, but love the comments from Clark talking about Martha saying she loved it here. So did I. Just remembering his time in Smallville. The squad arrive at the Batcave. Loved him introducing the members of the Justice League to Alfred, saying, hey, this is Alfred, I work for him. We had Aquaman saying, badass Alfred. And this last chapter was quite straightforward. They locate the mother box. We also had Bruce reminiscing on his dream of Barry Allen contacting him. There's still a whole debate about, was that really a dream though? I mean, he technically woke up, but is that like a timeline, neural kind of dissonance-y kind of thing that led him? I don't know. It's just weird because I believe that Ezra did go back in time. Barry did go back in time. He reflects on Barry Allen was right here when he said to me, Lois Lane is the key. Wonder Woman says she is. To Superman, every heart has one. But Bruce says, I think it's something more, something darker. So if he's implying that there's something more, something darker than just Lois Lane being the key, maybe that's referring to the anti-life equation as well, like bending Superman to his will. But you could argue in that premonition that Cyborg had through the mother box, you could argue it wasn't that. Lois died in another way. And what is that something darker than just that? But regardless, the Batship is flying thanks to Cyborg. He says it wanted to fly. Flight is its nature. But I also appreciate how Batman sweetly says, yours too. Everything feels like it's going on at once at this moment. Steppenwolf is like, my redemption is nigh. He starts to form the Unity and synchronize them. And then we got that scene of Superman wandering throughout the ship. You see the multiple suits open. But what was most beautiful about this scene is all the audio, the lines cut from various films, kind of reinvigorating Superman with his new purpose. Puts on the black suit. But as I said, the main thing was the new Superman coming to fruition in combination with the annotation, if you will, of those lines. It was absolutely absolutely brilliant. And he takes off. He's been given a new chance, as he says to Lois and Martha at the farm. And he's on his way to help out defeat Steppenwolf. This was so much more of a better final act and fight in general. There's no weird-ass vines coming out of everywhere, red skies. I'm not on board totally with Snyder's color palette, but let me just state that this is a billion times better than what we got in the theatrical cut. When they're all in unison, just kind of breaching, like that camera slow-mo pause happens with the Justice League members there. That was a brilliant addition. Such a great scene. It could make for any wallpaper on any desktop or laptop. It's fantastic. Overall, this final act and fight is just impressively mad with action and entertainment. Once again, to reiterate, I felt like Steppenwolf's CGI looks so clean, especially with his blue energy eyes. Meanwhile, the Flash is running around like anything, doing laps to generate such a speed. Cyborg is in position of the Unity. He reaches out to it. Barry's screaming Victor. But we also had that line from Steppenwolf to Diana saying, "I watched your island burn. Your sister's begging for their lives, as did your mother." And that's when Diana says liar. Now, that could just mean the past, I guess, but technically Themyscira didn't burn. And I'm wondering if when Steppenwolf was imbued with the energy from the mother box when he was teleported to find the anti-life equation, was he given a similar premonition to what Cyborg saw in the future of Diana dead, the Armada above Themyscira burnt? Like, do you know what I mean? It wasn't explicitly explained, unless I'm misunderstanding here. That line, I choose to believe, was a reference to the future of Themyscira burning. Diana was confused because she's like, liar, like, well, it hasn't burned, and it hasn't burned in the past, so what do you mean? But I think that's a reference to the future of where Themyscira is completely screwed over because of the Nightmare timeline. Cyborg finally interacts with the Unity. He calls out to Barry as Steppenwolf circles him. He says, "For Darkseid," but Superman takes the full brunt of his axe. It's just like, not impressed. I'm sorry, but that is such a better way to do this scene. And like, what I don't get is, and this could be another moment, I'm gonna have to try and refrain myself from repeating myself, but like in the theatrical cut, he decided to reshoot that scene. And he said something along the lines that was a nod, truth, justice, and the American way. That means he looked at that footage where he could have saved himself some work that was already shot by Snyder of when the axe touches him. He says, not impressed. He uses his freeze breath to obliterate the axe. That was more than good enough. Why did you change it, Whedon? Overall, there was a bunch of reorganized scenes in this fight, a lot of different executions, and obviously this way was much better. But can we talk about that? Bum, 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 bum. Like that, when that happened, when the axe touched him, that is Superman. I have to really contain myself because I just am reliving that right now in my conscious stream of thoughts and visual imagery, and it is too glorious. It's just, help me. One thing I didn't like, though, when Barry was going around in laps is how a parademon, those stupid parademons, managed to shoot with the turret Barry when he was going at super speed. Like, I'm sorry, but I don't think so. No. Either way, a bunch of things were happening in this moment. The portal opens where Darkseid was literally watching this all go down. That was a very good choice. Once again, to further what I was saying in my last review, like the fact that they didn't include any of that in the Whedon cut just shows they didn't want to set up an actual sequel for the Justice League, because you would have literally had Darkseid. Why not? Why not? You could argue why wouldn't Darkseid pop through, but that's more of an unwise decision if he's not prepared to fight literal multiple Justice League members. And because it's too late, and with what happens there, I love the fallout scene with Barry. This is what we were teased with in the trailers. I feel like we saw most of it in the trailers, but that doesn't make it any less cool. I would have liked to see some weirdy kind of future past things included in the Speed Force, kind of similar to what they did in Season 1 with Barry traveling for the first time. I argue that would have caused too many different things, though, for the movie that they would have to have paid respect to in the future with certain characters, but you could have made really ambiguous comments for a stand-in actor or the Reverse Flash or something like that, because this is the Speed Force. It's both past, present, future, everything. That just would have been really cool, but this was cool enough. I really enjoyed the Speed Force kind of score that kicked in this moment. I've been listening to that right before I recorded this. That line, and this is the Ezra, the non-quirky Barry Allen that I can get on board with, where he says, "Dad, whatever happens, I want you to know your kid was one of them, Dad. One of the best of the best." That was a really good line. It's kind of like innocently bigging himself up, knowing something bad might just happen, but I did it, Dad. Like, it was such a, like, I'm getting chills, like, as I say that. So if we get more of that in Flashpoint, that kind of temperament of demeanor of Ezra Miller's Barry, I will be more than happy. As we see time reverse, you get a couple more potential subtle references to R rating, where you see Superman come back because that blast over planet Earth just vaporized everyone. You saw Victor, flesh and blood, come back, or that half of his face. And then Victor is put inside the dream or mindscape of the mother box, where you see the kind of ancient alien-y technology try to speak out to him, saying that we've been waiting for you, Victor, my broken boy. You don't have to be alone anymore. Cliche kind of like, join us, you don't have to do this. He has this realizing moment, more absolutely brilliant Victor moments of the Snyder Cut, made even better by Ray Fisher's performance, saying, I'm not broken, and I'm not alone. And in this moment, he starts fighting back, and he plunges deeper into the mother box, where it's revealed that we can kind of see the original race that made a science so advanced that, as Diana said herself, it appeared like sorcery. Calls out for Superman, they separate the boxes, and they're left on the floor. Now, the difference in this version is that they state, that I believe Darkseid states that they're destroyed. In the theatrical cut, nothing's addressed. They're just like wiped out on the floor, whatever. And in this version, they're not destroyed. This wasn't made crystal clear enough, I think, as well. Superman and Cyborg separate them, and that's all that was going on in that moment, to our knowledge, is that they were separating the Unity, and they do get separated. But for some reason, they're declared as destroyed, even though they're still physically there. I'm guessing that a logical explanation to that is with Cyborg being injected into the mother boxes, even after the Unity was separated, they were left redundant because his Cyborg was more or less, to give a comparison here, it was like a virus in their system and he rendered them useless. And I'm guessing that was the difference in the Snyder Cut compared to the theatrical cut, where they just weren't even addressed. They were just separated, and that was that. Ultimately, Steppenwolf gets his freaking horn lasered off. Wonder Woman decapitates him. As Snyder said, I use gods to kill gods, and his head gets sent back through the portal. Darkseid crushes Steppy's head. Also, I just want to note, before Steppenwolf was decapitated, he was like, he's here. It was just so happy to think of Darkseid, you know, with that portal opening up, watching him, watching hopefully his glory and redemption. But it's just to the very end, Steppenwolf allowed such empathy from the viewer to him. I mean, maybe you might not feel that way, but watch it again with that in mind and understand the full context of what happened with him and Darkseid and how it actually wasn't betrayal. Like, this guy, it was shat on the whole time. Loved the last gazing look of Darkseid upon his adversaries, the new age, present day, united peoples of Earth. He is probably very pissed in this moment. As we saw between Darkseid and Darkseid, they're going to use the old ways now to still acquire the anti-life equation, because no matter what, right, they now know the anti-life equation is on Earth, and they are coming sooner or later. But the epilogue was pretty sweet as well. We had Victor kind of do what I said earlier with the tape recorder, and he got that commentary from his dad, which narrated over a bunch of scenes that kind of set little seeds up for the future of this Snyderverse, like Ryan Choi. We had Barry getting his job in the crime lab, putting his foot in the door, and how Henry Allen, you know, yet again, that acting in that scene, how he was like almost crying with happiness. I want that Henry Allen for the future, but we're not getting him. Bruce buys the Kent farm. He says, congratulations on the engagement. Or is it the pregnancy? But no, really, it's probably the engagement. We have Batman on top of his war machine. That was such a kind of, it's still a very cool, beautifully shot scene. But like, that was, I guess, meant to be a day in the life of Batman. Like that, because this montage was like, I guess, over the days and weeks after. So that was technically a Dark Knight Returns storyline just captured in one scene. You saw the criminals on the floor there, and he captured them. But I want to know what the hell happened in Gotham, because there's so much rubble around the surrounding areas, and we only got the very scene of where the scene was over. So almost maybe a Dark Knight Returns-y kind of thing happened in between all of this, and we just got the final moment of it. And we got Clark Kent ripping off his shirt, and he still had the black suit on. I would love to know if you think he should have had the blue suit again. Technically, if I was Superman, I probably would have gone back to the blue suit, because I would have to do my own PR and thinking how people would perceive my black suit, and they'd be like, why has it changed? What does this mean? Why are you going darker even though he's not dark? I would have just stuck to the blue, got the blue one back, but that's just me. We got the Deathstroke scene, setting up the Batman film, as I kind of already gone over. He knows Bruce Wayne's name now. What I am fascinated by with this, in terms of, if you know already, this is about something that happened in the past between Deathstroke and Batman. Likely maybe one of his sons dying that was inadvertently due to Batman. Maybe he was involved in it some way, shape or form, and he wants to get revenge. revenge by dismantling his life. But was this Batman solo movie gonna take place before Darkseid arrived on Earth? I have all those kind of questions. And then we had Martian Manhunter at the end, which I mainly went over earlier with how he realizes he now has a stake in the world. The CGI, it's both weird, it's like really good, but it's also really like something's quite off with it. It looks good. I love the overall concept of Martian Manhunter, but I felt like it didn't necessarily have that blur to it, but it felt like it wasn't nearly as refined, obviously, as Steppenwolf was. Steppenwolf was like ultra 4K, 20K kind of detail to him, whereas Martian Manhunter, I'd argue, is like, even though this is all in 4K available, it almost had like a 720p effect to it. Do you know what I mean there? Either way, really nice ending. You could tell that scene was reshot as well, like Ben Affleck. I didn't mind it, but you could tell that the director or someone was standing in, reading lines to Ben Affleck, and Ben Affleck was just, you know, trying to do his best to imagine what was going on. I still appreciated that scene. And then obviously the nightmare stuff we've covered in a whole other video. So overall, the Snyder Cut was definitely a necessity, something that was proven to be utilized in the best way that fans realized it could long ago, something that should have happened in the first place, and it gave fans what they wanted. It felt greatly fleshed out, greatly paced, obviously too long for a theatrical cut, but it still felt right, you know, in every way. Characters were done justice. Cyborg, Superman, and his, like, for example, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, his entry compared to that of what they reshot for no reason when they already had that scene there for when Steppenwolf got his axe on his shoulder. It's just that again and again and again and again that just echoes throughout the whole film, to the point of where this movie is something that I could watch again and again, even though it's 4 hours long. So, would love to know what you thought of this. I know it's, as I said, more of a podcasty video, but these do take a lot of effort to edit and, you know, continuously put pictures in throughout the different points where I'm talking about, believe it or not. So, hope you guys made it to this point, and if you did, last time I said prove it by putting in your comment in the comment section, hashtag justice for Steppenwolf, and this time it's hashtag Alfred makes better tea than Wonder Woman. I don't know, I just made this off the top of my head. Put that down in the comments if you made it this far, guys. Really appreciate that. Like the video if you did enjoy it. Subscribe for more things just like this. Check out my top pinned links in the comments. If you've made it this far and you're a big fan of the channel, I'd love to talk to you in my Discord server. Love to talk to you on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. The top pinned comment has all of those links, so make sure you go there in the comment section at the very top to the pinned comment. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the Snyderverse in the next video. Goodbye.